Welcome to the world of Kindi. Before we get into what Kindi is and how it works, I'd first like to introduce you to some people. Meet Anne and Phil and their two kids, 5-year-old Luke and 3-year-old Cassie. Phil has recently been relocated to Hong Kong from Sydney for work, and they are now part of the ever-growing expat community in Asia. This is Jill and her daughter Pippa. Jill is a single parent. And finally, meet Katie and Dave and their adorable dog Rufus. Katie and Dave are in their early 30s and have been married for 3.5 years. Since moving to Hong Kong, life has been far from easy for Anne and Phil. It is known that the trailing spouse is often the one affected and experiences homesickness, depression, irritability, and frustration. Trailing spouses often feel like they experience a loss of identity. There is a lack of community that might bolster a struggling couple. And did you know that upwards of 60% of expatriates' marriages fail due to the stress of offshore posting? When we spoke to couples in the same position as Anne and Phil and asked them what would help ease the transition, there were 3 common threads. The first was connecting with like-minded people. They felt if they had other people around them that knew what they were experiencing, then they would feel less alone. The second is sense of community. Essentially, everyone feels better about themselves or a situation when they feel part of something. And finally, it was having a support network. You know what they say, a problem shared is a problem halved. Now moving on to Jill, who has been bringing up her 8-year-old daughter solely since she was only 1.5 years old. Did you know that in Australia, as of 2015, there are almost 1 million single-parent families? Unfortunately, despite modern times, single-parent families are still often stigmatised by society. The lack of social support for single parents also contributes to their low levels of life satisfaction. We spoke to a number of single parents, and this is what they said. If only someone in my town could relate to what I'm going through. I'm surrounded by perfect families and I feel like I never fit in. Being a parent with a partner is hard enough. You can't imagine what it will be like, juggling, struggling all by yourself and know what to fall back on. Unless you've lived it, you can't understand the loneliness that comes from being trapped in isolation with a small child as the only company. When asked what would help make their situation more bearable, we started to identify some familiar pointers. The first, connecting with like-minded people. Again, having someone else who has that common understanding and who is walking the same path. The next was sense of community. Single parents can often be excluded from social events, so it was still very important for them to have a sense of belonging. And the last but not least was a support network. It takes a village to raise a child, so doing it solo is no easy feat. Remember our lovely couple, Katie and Dave? Well, they've been trying for a baby for 3 years, and so far it's been a tough journey, and they are not the only ones affected. 1 in 7 couples are affected by infertility, but no one talks about it. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. 1% of women have to go through that repeatedly, and 10% of all people are currently turning to assisted reproductive technologies to help them achieve their dream family. Our research revealed that 50% of women said infertility was the most upsetting experience of their lives. Women feel as anxious or depressed as those with cancer, and couples tended to avoid social interactions with their friends and families. When questioned what might help them during their difficult times, we again started to see a familiar thread, just as we did for our expat family and single parents. Connecting with like-minded people was so important. Being such a taboo subject, many couples cited that they battled it alone. And even if they did share their experience, they really felt unless people had been through it, they just could not relate. Despite being excluded from so many social activities, they still really wanted to feel they were part of some sort of community. Now this was a big one for people like Katie and Dave. 92% of the couples we spoke to felt they just did not have the support they needed. Research demonstrates community belonging is highly correlated with physical and mental health, even when age, socioeconomic status and other factors are taken into account. A survey showed the typical mother says her level of stress is an 8.5 on a 10-point scale, and 50% said it was due to lack of support. Our vision is to be able to make parenting fun and stress-free, whatever the circumstances. We want to build an online support network where parents can enjoy a more enriched, cohesive and pleasurable experience of raising children. How do we make that happen? Well, by developing an app which essentially helps parents manage the workload, save money, create memorable experiences, and engender lifelong relationships.